I've spent the best part of a decade trying to work out how to be more productive, and in that time I've tried almost everything. I've tried apps, I've tried systems, I've tried life hacks, I've tried cutting out caffeine, I've tried having more caffeine, I've tried intermittent fasting, I've tried having a second phone so I don't have social media apps near me, I've tried blocking websites. Literally anything that you can possibly imagine which you think might make you slightly more productive, at some point over the past decade I've tried it. But in doing all of that, I've realized that there's not any of those complex systems or things which make me more productive. When I boil it down, there are 5 really simple things which I can account 90% of my increased productivity to. They are sleep, hydration, nutrition, movement, and intentional time off. And so in this video, I want to explain to you how you can use those 5 basics to supercharge your productivity without any apps or systems, by just focusing on the basics. Let's get into it. So the first and arguably the most important one of these 5 fundamentals, which are definitely going to make you more productive, is sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep, then you cannot be productive, right? This one's really important because there's research out there to suggest that 1 in 3 adults in the Western world aren't getting enough sleep. That means that if you and 2 work colleagues are sat around a table, if you and 2 friends are out for dinner, one of you is statistically likely to be sleep deprived. One of you is statistically likely to have some level of impairment, which in certain studies is similar to that of being ever so slightly drunk, right? How can you possibly be productive if you're sleep deprived? And so before you focus on literally anything else, the singular thing that you should be focusing on if you're currently not getting good sleep, and as a result you're currently not as productive as you could be, and you want to be more productive, is your sleep. Now the ground rules here for sleep are really basic, and the chances are you've heard most of these things before. The first and foremost thing is that you should be focusing on trying to get 8 hours of good quality sleep each night. Now it's important to break down what I just said, because 8 hours of good quality sleep encompasses 2 things there, right? It encompasses a time, 8 hours, but also the words good quality. It's no good being in bed for 8 or 9 hours if you're not asleep for 4 of those because you're on your phone. It's no good being in bed and saying, you know what, I was in bed for 8 hours last night, but I woke up every 30 minutes because there was some sort of distraction or there was some light or noise coming into my room. So focusing on not just getting the duration of sleep that you need, but also the quality of sleep that you need is how you're going to make sure that you're using sleep to supercharge what you can actually get done the next day. And there are a few things that you can do to make sure that on the quality side of this equation, you're actually getting good quality sleep, right? Because from the 8 hours perspective, so long as you're reasonable at scheduling your days and your life is fairly predictable, right? If you have a newborn baby, I'm sure this doesn't apply to you, but so long as you can carve out 8 to 9 hours of sleep time, that's fine, that's taken care of. So let's focus on how you can improve the quality of that sleep. I would say the first thing to do is ensure that for around an hour before you go to bed, you're avoiding all blue light, right? And you're also avoiding as much stimulus as possible. So have a buffer of an hour before you actually plan to be asleep within your schedule, where for that 1 hour, you're not on your phone, you're not watching Netflix, you're not texting, you're not FaceTiming, you're not doing anything which either brings blue light into your eyes or indeed stimulates your mind, right? Nothing that stirs up thoughts, nothing that gets you excited. Basically, you want a protective bubble around your sleep time, which begins around 60 minutes before you plan to go to sleep, where you're doing nothing but chilling out. Maybe your room is dark or you have a little candle or a light, potentially reading like a Kindle or something which doesn't give off much light, and just avoiding anything which might keep you awake beyond the time when you plan to go to sleep. Now, the next thing when it comes to making sure that you're getting the best quality sleep possible is, wherever possible, trying to have a consistent sleep and wake time, and having that on the weekends as well, right? So let's say that you get to sleep at 11 p.m. and you wake up at 7 a.m. Where possible, every day of the week, including the weekend, try and stick to that. That's going to make sure that you're sleeping within your circadian rhythm, that your body is in tune with the sleep that you're getting. Because when you go to sleep really late on the weekends, or you wake up really late on the weekends, your body literally has a single day to try and counteract the negative effect of your sleep pattern being completely thrown out. And that's going to mean that Sunday night, Monday morning, Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, your sleep quality and therefore your ability to get things done during the daytime is going to be diminished. So wherever possible, try and go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day, including on the weekends. Now, the third way that you're going to try and get the best quality sleep possible is to sleep with your phone on the other side of the room. I've been doing this for about 3 years, and this is the single best sleep hack that I've ever discovered, because what do you do in the moments when you can't sleep, right? When you're tossing and turning and you know that you should be going to sleep, but you just can't get to sleep because it's one of those nights. Well, if your phone's next to your bed, you're going to reach for your phone. But think about it, that's really counterproductive, because the second you've reached for your phone, you've then got blue light going in through your eyes. You've got all sorts of hormones, dopamine flowing around of all of these different apps. You've got inputs which are causing you to be more awake for a longer period of time. And the second that your head hits the pillow again and you want to sleep, your body and your mind knows that the second you have a slight bit of hesitancy to being able to get to sleep, the phone is there, right? This is very cyclical. If your phone is next to your bed and you can't sleep, you're going to pick up your phone. Picking up your phone is going to make it less likely that you're able to then get to sleep. This is how everybody in the past, myself included, stays up for hours later than they intend to. The really easy way to fix this is to just put your phone on the other side of the room, make sure that it's completely out of arm's reach. And then the next morning, if you're waking up to an alarm, this has a double benefit, because when your alarm's going off and your phone isn't right next to your bed, you can't just pick it up and turn it off. You have to physically get your body up, stand up, be awake, walk across to the other side of the room, and then turn your phone off. Particularly in the winter months when it's cold, that is huge. By focusing in on the topic of this video, making sure that your phone isn't next to your bed just means you're getting better quality sleep, which means the next day when you do eventually wake up, you'll be more productive. And then the final thing, particularly when we're coming into summer months, to make sure that you're getting the best quality sleep possible whilst focusing on the basics, is making sure that your bedroom is the right temperature. Now, I think that they say the optimal temperature for humans to sleep is around 19 degrees Celsius. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, I'm sure you can Google it, but essentially make sure that your room is the optimal temperature, not only to help you fall asleep, but crucially, and you'll know this in the summer months, to make sure that you continue to stay asleep, right? Think about the reasons why you wake up in the middle of the night. It's because you're too hot, it's because your body can't adjust to the heat, and so it has to wake you up to do so. If you're making sure that your room is the correct temperature, those 8 or 9 hours of sleep time that you have carved out to sleep, you'll be more likely to sleep during them. And so really they're the fundamentals of good sleep. You can read the book Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker if you want to learn more about this. I would say that things like tracking your sleep, having all of this data, for this purpose here really isn't important. I don't track my sleep in any sort of way anymore. I used to do that for a couple of years. Just focus on the basics, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, making sure that that sleep is a good quality, and then waking up and going to bed at the same time every day. Those fundamentals will make sure that when you do wake up, you're going to be rested, you're not going to be tired, and you're going to be able to be productive. Now, the second of these basics is hydration. So severe dehydration, as we all know, can cause things like fatigue, it can cause mood disturbances, but even subtle, slight dehydration can be enough to throw us off, to make us less productive, to make us less focused, and generally just to make us feel worse. So making sure that you're staying hydrated throughout the entirety of the day, from the moment you wake up until before you go to bed, including crucially in those busy working hours when it's so easy to forget to have any water because you're at your desk, you're working, there's phone calls, there's emails. Making sure that you stay hydrated is hugely important when it comes to being as productive as you can be on any given day. Now, the NHS says that the average adult should be drinking around 2.5 litres of water each day. I simplify that myself by just saying 5 pints, and then I use a pint glass, and I know that each time I finished a pint glass, that's a pint, I count to 5, I've had enough water. Spreading out that water throughout the day I find is quite helpful, particularly for productivity, right? If you drink it all within a couple of hours, you're going to need to be going to the toilet every few minutes. So having a pint of water when you wake up, I do this with electrolytes. There's interesting research to suggest that electrolytes can aid the function of energy systems, the adrenal system. They can reduce stress and they can help us stay more hydrated. So having a pint of water when you wake up with electrolytes, and then evenly spaced pints of water throughout the day to make sure that your body and your mind are remaining hydrated throughout the entire day. And then lots of this just comes down to environment design, right? It's not that we don't know whether or not we should be drinking water. We all know that we should. It's that in the moments when we're busy and when there's a deadline approaching and when we're in the flow state and we're getting stuff done, it's so easy to forget to drink water, right? The way we get dehydrated when we're trying to be productive is because actually, paradoxically, for a moment we're being productive, right? We're so focused on what we're doing that we haven't had a chance to stand up and go and get water. So things like making sure that there's always a cup of water next to you when you begin a work session so that you don't need to disturb yourself, but you know that it's there, you can carry on drinking as you work, or having a reminder on your phone or on your calendar that each time you take a break, whether it's every 30 minutes, every 2 hours, whatever it is, that you're building into those little breaks in your lunch breaks and the trip home from the office, wherever it might be, these reminders to drink water. Basically split out throughout the day, 5 reminders, a pint on each reminder every couple of hours, and that way you know that every single day you're going to be drinking enough water, and therefore your productivity will not suffer at the consequences of you being dehydrated. The third basic thing when it comes to being productive might surprise you because it's nutrition. Now, we're told that nutrition shapes our body, right? We're told that it shapes the way we look and the way we feel in the longer term, but actually there's a huge amount of really interesting research into what the foods we consume and how we consume them, when we consume them, does to our productivity in the moment. So for example, there is research to suggest that unhealthy eating the night before can actually make you less productive the next day, right? So watching what you're eating the night before is having a knock-on effect, impact as to whether or not you're getting as much done in any given day. There's also plenty of research into the impacts of high sugar in any given time and how the insulin response from the body causes us to have a sugar crash and therefore an energy crash. You know the feeling, particularly if you've had a carb heavy lunch. You know exactly what I'm talking about, where you eat your food and half an hour later you feel like you're ready to go to bed and you can't get anything done. And then also people just self-report the idea that delaying their first meal until 1 p.m, 2 p.m, so doing some sort of intermittent fasting helps them be more productive in that fasted state in the first few hours. So there's lots going on here when it comes to how nutrition can shape your productivity. Now, I am not qualified in any way to tell you what you should or shouldn't be eating, but there's a really interesting book by Max Lugavere called Genius Foods, and this has essentially informed my approach to what I eat and when, particularly on the days when I'm trying to get a lot done. But essentially the summary here is listen to your body and understand how your body reacts to different foods, right? So a good idea here, I think, is keeping some sort of food journal for a couple of weeks if you feel comfortable doing so. And essentially each time you have a meal, write down how you felt before the meal, write down what you ate during the meal, write the ingredients, the component parts, and then write how you feel, say, half an hour after the meal. And then after a couple of weeks, you should be able to derive which foods make you have energy crashes, energy dips, right? Which foods make you feel great and give you really long-term energy throughout the day. And then from that, again, if you feel comfortable doing so, because this is a very unique thing for each person, you can then pick and choose the foods that you eat throughout the day to make sure that you're focusing in on the meals and the types of foods which help you have this consistent energy rather than this spiky energy where you crash in the middle of the day and then feel like you can't get anything more done. The fourth of these productivity basics is movement. Now, again, there is countless research to suggest that moving your body throughout the day can help with energy levels, it can help with focus, it can help with productivity, it can help with the cognitive function of your mind. And the good news here is I'm not talking about a really intense 90-minute CrossFit workout, right? I'm not talking about half marathon training every day in the middle of the day. What I'm talking about here is just occasionally, particularly if you're a knowledge worker, somebody who sits at a desk as you work, standing up and going for a walk, right? Making sure that there is some sort of movement in your day, so you're not just sat at a desk all day, because again, the research suggests that although you might feel more productive because you've sat at your desk for 8 hours, having a 30-minute walk in between that, although you're spending less time at your desk, the research suggests that you can actually get far more done because you're incorporating that movement into your day. And so what I do is really basic. In my calendar, I have a block called lunch and walk, and I have my lunch, and then immediately afterwards every single day I go for a walk. And on any given day I'm aiming for 7,500 steps. It's nice to want to aim for 10,000 steps, but to be honest, I just don't have the time. Like, the route that I would have to walk around here where the office is to get 10,000 steps in just isn't going to work for me. So it takes me about 40 minutes to go on this walk, 7,500 steps. And I promise you, on the days when I forget to go for the walk, on the days when, because I'm busy around lunch or around 2 p.m, whatever it might be, when I can't go for that walk, more often than not, I crash far sooner, right? It gets to 3 p.m, it gets to 4 p.m, and I feel like I am fatigued and lethargic and tired and just can't get anything done. Whereas on the days when I go for the walk, on the days when I spend less time at my desk because I've got that movement in, I feel like I can go for hours and hours longer. It's almost like you get this second working day once you move your body a little bit, because you're kind of loosening everything up, you're getting your blood flowing, you're getting your mind working, you've moved yourself away from this intense working environment to a more free-flowing environment where your thoughts and your ideas can kind of bubble up to the top, and then you sit down, you work again, and more often than not, you are far more productive. So that is the importance of getting movement into your day for the benefit of productivity. And then the fifth and final productivity basic is the idea of taking intentional time off. Now, this is both time off within your day, a few minutes here and there, but also having days and even weeks of planned time off in the future that you know is coming, that you know you can disconnect from work when it gets to a certain day, when it gets to a certain week. Now, there is lots of interesting research into this. For example, a piece of research in the US found that the top 10% of workers, productivity-wise, take something like 12 minutes off for every 52 minutes that they work, right? These people are literally taking 20% of each hour off to not work, and they are the people who in any given organization are getting the most work done, right? If you were to look over at your colleague and every hour they're spending 10 minutes not working, you're going to be thinking that person's really unproductive. But actually, the data disagrees. Those who take intentional breaks within their day, more often than not, are getting more work done in the moments when they should be working. On top of that, there's a big trend right now of organizations trialing out the 4-day work week, and there's some research out of New Zealand which shows that actually those who work 4 days a week rather than 5 days a week not only get just as much work done when they're in work, but they find that they can balance their work and their life more steadily. Now, of course, the benefit of this is if you're trying to be productive and you have life admin tasks that are moving into the side of your brain because you know that you need to take care of something, well, then actually you're not going to be very effective at either working or taking care of those things. If you really clearly separate and define when you should be working and when you shouldn't, with things like time off, that helps you focus more when you're in work, but also be more present in the moments when you're not. And on top of that, having planned time off every now and then, where you have a day away from working, a full weekend away from thinking about work, or even a week or two off, helps Parkinson's law work in your favor. Parkinson's law, of course, is this idea that work expands to fill the time which we allocate to it. You know the feeling when you've got 2 hours left to complete an essay that you've had for 4 weeks, and suddenly in those final 2 hours, you find just enough time to get done that project. We can replicate this idea when it comes to broader projects in our working life. Because if you're not going to have a day off for the next 6 weeks and you have a project which could well take 6 weeks to complete, you have no incentive to complete it any sooner, right? Whereas if you know that you have some time off at the end of next week, you've got, say, 9 days between now and your week off, there is an absolute incentive for you to get that work done before the break, right? And of course, Parkinson's law, if you set the deadline of that break being when you want to finish this project, dictates that you will probably get it done. So both in the short term, as we've discussed, but also in the long term when it comes to things like reducing burnout and extrapolated out productivity over longer periods of time, there is lots of data to suggest that if you have intentional time off and you separate your work and your life, and when you're working, you focus on work, and when you're living your life, you're able to effectively disconnect from work, right? Physically and mentally, you will be more productive in the moments when you need to be. And also you'll probably just be a bit happier. And so that's it. They are the 5 fundamentals of productivity that I live by. It has taken me an awful long time to realize that productivity is basic, right? Productivity is not fancy systems. It's not crazy ideas that you pull out of books. For the most part, productivity is just making sure that when you sit down to get something done, you have the energy, the attention and the focus to get it done. And energy, attention and focus come from those 5 things: sleep, hydration, nutrition, movement, and intentional time off. So make sure that you're focusing on those 5 things before anything else, and I promise you, you'll be far more productive as a result. And so that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you got value from this video and you'd like to see other videos just like this, make sure that you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one.